I am Jordan Moore alongside John Jackson and JJ, ready to kick things up a notch, man. It's Stanford week.
You know, it's time to play real football now.
It is.
It's good. And, you know, this Stanford game, it's really turned into like a mini rivalry. I mean, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be done. But the games have been so close over the last 4 or 5 years. It's been one of those things that, you know, Stanford has really caused some problems. The one thing you're guaranteed to get when you play Stanford is big man on big man football, Jordan, so roll your sleeves up this weekend.
Yeah, the last 5 games have been decided by an average of 4.6 points per game. We'll bring in the coach here. Tell us all about it. Trojans Live is brought to you by your Southern California BMW Center's exclusive partner of the SoCal BMW Crosstown Cup. Now during the BMW Mission to Drive, lease a 2015 BMW 320i sedan for as low as $369 a month with zero due at signing. Just sign and drive. Details at SoCalBMW.com. The head coach of the number 6 team in the nation, the USC Trojans, Steve Sarkisian, sitting down with us, and let's put a little bow on Idaho. Your second week. Coach is always looking to improve from week 1 to week 2. Where'd you see the biggest areas of improvement?
You know, I think individually a lot of guys made improvements, and that was part of the goal going in, Jordan. You know, we had talked about it. Everybody had things to work on, whether it was technique, fundamentals, alignment, assignment. There was a lot of that took place, and it's hard to pick one thing. I think probably the most glaring improvement was up front on the offensive line. You know, they got a lot thrown at them in week 1 by Arkansas State, and Idaho came out with kind of the same mentality. Let's give them a different front, a different blitz, a different movement and things going on up front. I thought up front on the offensive line, our communication was really good. It showed in the run game. It showed in pass protection. Cody was really comfortable in the back of the pocket, throwing the ball down the field, which was another improvement to our game. But I thought that area was just, all in all, was really good for us. That the up front, the line of scrimmage was really clean.
You know, one other area of improvement that I saw was that you got back to the tempo that you sort of wanted. I mean, when you look at the final stats, it doesn't really reflect it because I know the game in the second half. But at halftime, you had like 45 plays offensively by the half, and it seemed like it was clicking the way you wanted it to from before.
Yeah, that's right, JJ. And I really felt that coming out of the first game. You know, we had talked at length about we only had 63 plays against Arkansas State, and we were trying to be really perfect. We were trying to be right, and it's game 1, and there's some different mechanics, obviously, with Clay calling it and me still on the headset and all that. But I thought we really transitioned to week 2 and got the tempo going right. I thought the players understood it. I thought Clay did an excellent job all week of conveying that message to the team that, hey, offensively, guys, we're going to go, and our tempo is going to be really good. We're going to speed it up, so everybody's got to be on the same page. And I thought, all in all of the skill guys, the substitution patterns were really good. We still played all of the offensive linemen. We got that done, which we wanted to happen. I thought Cody's sense of urgency was a lot better in week 2 as well.
Yeah, he was nearly spotless. I mean, he was solid in week 1, but, boy, he was really on his game in week 2. Just settling down?
I think so. You know, it's your senior year. There's all the expectations, all those things. You can come in and just be a little antsy, I guess is the best way to describe maybe Cody in week 1. He wanted it to be great. You know, he wanted the game to go great. And when you want it that way and you try to play that way, sometimes you don't play as well as you like. We're all at our best when we're relaxed, we're calm, we're confident. And I thought he got back to that in week 2, and his feet were really clean in the pocket. He was making really decisive decisions, and in turn, I thought the ball was coming out of his hand better. It was more accurate. He was a lot more catchable, which we're used to seeing, and guys were making plays for him.
You know, that's the part that I noticed. I even mentioned on the broadcast. It seemed like he knew exactly where he wanted to go, you know, prior to the snap, which, of course, is ideal for a quarterback. You know, how much does play calling go into that mix in terms of making it easier for him?
Well, there was part of it. You know, what I thought we did a good job of against Idaho was I thought the passing game and the running game really complemented one another. When we were getting the one-high safety looks where they were trying to load the box to defend the run, we were able to get the ball outside in one-on-one scenarios, whether it was Juju, Darius Rogers, Stephen Mitchell, Adoree Jackson. All these guys were getting the ball on the perimeter. When they went back to defend the pass, then Cody made the right decision to hand the ball off and get the running game going again. So I thought that played into it. I thought we just had a good mix and a good blend of the passing game and the running game complementing one another.
You know, Juju's an interesting receiver. We sort of scout him out each week and talk about him. He's different to us than the last sort of 3 big guys here who were, you know, about 6 feet tall, all really great route runners and really fast top-end speed guys. he's built big, but he's not necessarily 6'5" either. I mean, you know, he plays big. You see him and you think he's huge, but at the end of the day, you know, height-wise, he's not that big. How do you sort of scout out Juju and what his greatest strengths are as a receiver?
Well, he's very physical. I'll give Juju that. He's very physical, and he plays with maximum effort every play. I don't care if it's clearing out for another guy to get open, or if it's blocking for the running backs, or if it's on kickoff return, blocking for Adoree on a kickoff return, or if it's catching a ball on a hitch and running through a DB and making a 6-yard gain and turning it into 12. He just plays a very physical brand of football. He's got a really high football IQ. And probably the best comparison, somebody asked me about this earlier, probably Antoine Bolden is a guy I think of, you know, at Florida State and what he's done in the NFL. It's kind of that physical guy. But Antoine's not big, tall either, but they're strong, and they're able to break tackles. They block really well. He's got a high football IQ, so you could compare him to somebody. Maybe that's the best comparison right now.
Speaking about explosive players, just running back position. I don't even. It doesn't matter, you know, which one. I can be talking about any of the 5 or 6 guys that played. You got to be pleased, but at the end of the day, what's going to happen? I mean, you got 5 guys that are playing at a high level. And now here we come. You know, does the rotation tighten up, or where do we go from here? Is it just keep rolling how we're rolling?
Well, I think we're going to keep going how we're going. This is a little bit new for everybody. You know, since I've been a head coach, I've always kind of had that one bell cow. You know, from Chris Polk to Bishop Sankey to Buck last year, and this is a little bit unique. This kind of goes back to some of our earlier years when I was here as an assistant, when you had, you know, Reggie and Lindell and Herschel Dennis and Chauncey Washington and Desmond Reed, and we kind of had all those guys at one time too. And so you just try to find the flow of the game. You try to get those guys in situations and running plays that they're good at and they're comfortable doing. And then at some point you try to find that hot hand. And we've all seen those games where one guy just, you know, everybody's kind of getting their carries early on, and you see the guy that's on that night, and he starts taking over the bulk of the load. So we're fortunate. All of them are working hard. You know, I'm proud of our 3 young kids because the college game is different. It's new, and the pass protection aspect of it, understanding protections and schemes and pressures, those guys have really worked at it. They picked up all the pressures the other night, and that's part of being an every down back. It's not just carrying the ball, it's doing the little things and the route running, pass protection, that those guys have come a long, long way in a short amount of time.
You know, I watched the way Justin Davis started that game, and to me, is that the fruit of competition? I mean, because that's what you have now. As Justin watches that first week and says, hey, I better start running right out of the gate because there's 4 other guys that are demanding the football, and he comes out and says, don't forget about me.
It sure was. I thought it was fantastic, and we made it a point. We wanted to get Justin in the game early. You know, anytime a guy's coming off an injury, I think it's important to get him in there. You don't want him standing on the sidelines thinking about it, especially when it's, you know, he's coming off a rib injury and thinking about getting hit, not getting hit. You got to put him in there. You just got to let him play and play through it, and I thought Justin was fantastic. He looked great. He was running hard. He ran with intent, with an intention to score. And I think all of our guys are running that way. I mean, even when they're getting tackled, it's kind of like, oh, he almost stepped out of that one too. You know, they're all playing that way, and it's fun. It's fun for us as coaches. I can't imagine for the fans. They must be enjoying it as well.
It was a lot of fun to watch. We didn't even talk about Ronald Jones, but maybe we'll get into him when we come back. A lot to talk about with the coach. It is Stanford week. Big-time opponent coming up at the Coliseum, 5 p.m. on Saturday. Next, we have a good question here from Twitter. You can always tweet questions to us using the hashtag TrojansLive or at USC_athletics. Coach, we'll switch to the defensive side of the ball. We talked a lot of offense so far. What do you think you got out of the rush end position so far? And Porter Gustin, a guy, did he cut it loose for you this week? Did you get what you want? That question, by the way, is from Daniel W. at Westside Wong.
I think we're getting a lot out of the position. We've got 3 quality players that play there. Obviously, Scott Felix starts for us there. We see Jabari Ruffin playing that spot as well as Porter Gustin. I thought Porter was better. He had a tackle for loss in the backfield there, got a couple pressures on the quarterback. So we, generally speaking, a young player like that, that's when you make that big step, which we talked about from week 1 to week 2. So we're going to continue to platoon that position just like many positions on the defense. But all in all, you know, shoot, you come out of 2 games and you're only giving up, I think, 7.5 points a game. That's a pretty good stat for us right there.
Yeah, and you know, we're nitpicking at all these things, and the only stat, when you look at the stat line, the only stat that's out of line, and I know you want to correct, is the 3rd down conversion part of it. Part of it I know is part of the game, you know, how the game was going. How much is it a concern for you going to Stanford that you're 4 of 16 on 3rd down right now?
Well, you know, really our first offense was 0 for 3 in the game. When I look back at last week's game, and one of them, I think Cody be the first one to tell you, probably could have ran and gotten the first down on our sidelines. Another one, they made a good call defensively. And then the third one, they had another good call. They dropped 8 in the red zone. Cody scrambled up to get 3 or 4 yards, and then we went for it on 4th down and converted it. So, I look at it all. What I do, though, know is against a team like Stanford Saturday, who loves to possess the football, it is going to be critical for us to convert these 3rd downs, to extend our drives offensively, to maximize our opportunities. If you remember a year ago up there, I think we only had 2 drives in the first half, basically.
Yeah.
They really possessed the ball. And in those 2 drives, I think the opening drive of the game, we might have been 5 for 5 on 3rd down. So imagine if we hadn't done that on that drive. So it's going to be critical Saturday. I know we're better than what our numbers are telling us on 3rd down right now, but ultimately we have to go out and do it.
Yeah, when you look at Stanford and you look at last year's game, you mentioned it. It seemed like you really beat them at their game. It was a low-scoring game. It was a ball control game. You really tried to establish Buck, and it's something that we know this team can do, is just be physical and do that. But is it necessarily your style, and how do you get Stanford maybe out of their comfort zone playing more your game?
We really felt like going into the game last year, and again, that was coming after the Fresno game when we had just run 100-and-something plays, that we felt like we needed to possess the football offensively as much as we could, because we were just so thin defensively, and we didn't want Stanford just to wear us out and then win the game late in the game. We wanted to remain fresh. So I think we had 39 rush attempts and only 22 passes in that game, and we made it a point to try to run the football. We probably didn't throw it as well as we would have liked. Now here comes the next year. Obviously our depth is vastly improved on our football team with the influx of new players, injured guys coming back on both sides of the ball. So I think you're going to see a different style, maybe a different game plan, us sticking more to who we are and not try to step out of our realm of our philosophically who we are like we did last year in the game. I think you're going to see us try to play our style of play. And what's going to be unique is, can that style of play override Stanford's style of play? And I think that's something for the fans to really look at. This is 2 different teams clashing together, and ultimately it's either going to be a slower pace game, a low scoring game, or the pace is going to speed up, the scoring is going to speed up, and that's kind of what we're looking for, and making it a little bit more of a frantic pace.
One of the quarterbacks there's a couple quarterbacks in the conference that are coming back off of, returning quarterbacks to their team, but Hogan is a 4-year starter coming from Stanford. How much does that factor into game plan? Because I know one of the factors from a defensive coordinator standpoint, when you have young quarterbacks that, you can throw them all these different looks to fool them. You're probably not going to be able to do that with Hogan.
Right.
How do you go about trying to, deal with a guy that's seen you for the last 3 years?
Well, I think the biggest thing, like every quarterback, you always want to make a quarterback uncomfortable, but I think it's really important with Kevin because when he gets comfortable and when he gets hot, he can get hot. We saw it portions of our game a year ago. We saw it at the end of last season against UCLA and Maryland. He got rolling. He got hot. So we want to try to make him as uncomfortable as we can make him, whether it's physically or mentally, right? We can't just stand there either. We got to try to mix it up on him. We need to give him some different looks. We need to be really sticky on the receiver so that the windows are tight. And we got to get people in his face, ultimately. Anybody can throw when you're standing there and you got a nice clean pocket. So we need to make that pocket collapse. And hopefully we can just try to keep him out of, before he can even get into a rhythm, quite honestly.
It's very early, but they're number 1 in pass defense, and this is sort of nothing new. That they've been up in the defensive rankings every year for a long time now. What do they do well defensively to disrupt your timing? Because they're not known for having big-time athletes necessarily back there, but still they're hard to throw on.
Well, I think, one, they're committed to pressuring the quarterback. That they make a commitment, a conscious effort to make quarterbacks uncomfortable. Exactly what I'm talking about. They make a conscious effort to do it, 1. 2, they're very disciplined in the secondary. They don't run a bunch of different coverages, but what they do, they know it very well. They have a lot of different checks based on formations, and so they can get lined up. And they line up. They play relatively conservative. They don't give up a lot of deep balls. Very rarely do you see Stanford giving up the deep post or the deep go route, the stutter goes. They try to keep it in front of them. They tackle really well, and they're going to make you earn what you get. And so they force you to play a disciplined brand of football because you have to be willing to get 4, 5, 6, 8 yards along the way with checkdowns and different things, and they're going to make you earn it all the way down the field.
There's always a constant with Stanford, as of late. Their offensive line is always real good. This year they returned 4 out of the 5 guys from a year ago. How does that to me is the biggest key matchup of the whole game, their offensive line against our defensive line. What has to happen for your defensive line to be successful?
Well, I think, 1, we have to negate the running game on 1st and 2nd down, especially 1st down. If they're getting 4 or 5 yards of crack on first down and they're living in 2nd and 5, and then they can run it again and get to 3rd and 2s and live in that style, that's what they want. And that's when they can run it, they can throw it, play action pass. All those things are at their disposal. So it's really critical for our defensive front to win on first down and to force them and make them live in 2nd and 8, 9, and 10s. And then now the game kind of swings back in our favor, and we can make them a little bit more one-dimensional. So first down wins for our defensive front are going to be big.
Another interesting Twitter question from Mark. When teams struggle early in the season, people say they're trying not to show too much. How true is that, and how much do you worry when you look at the Stanford tape from the first 2 games, as you sort of said this with Arkansas State, is they played a completely different defense than anything they showed. How much do you worry when you're watching tape that, hey, Stanford's got a whole new game plan ready for you?
Well, I think a couple things with that. One, I think Stanford went to Northwestern and tried to win the game. I have a great deal of respect for David Shaw, and a couple things didn't go their way in that ball game. A couple drop passes that they catch, all of a sudden you're looking at a different outcome. So I think they went there to win the game, and they called the stuff that they thought that would be good enough to go win. On the other side of it, I know what I'm wearing on my chest, and when you have the SC interlock on your chest and you put on that helmet, you're going to get everybody's best shot every Saturday. And that best shot isn't always about effort from the players, it's effort from the coaching staffs as well. So we always anticipate the unknown. We just want to be great at making really good adjustments on the sidelines and coaching our players really cleanly so that they understand what to expect the next series they take the field.
I know we moved over to the defensive side, but I have to go back to offense and give some love to my receivers. Saturday, I thought, was an outstanding job of blocking. I know everybody watches the big plays, but explain the blocking, because I mean those guys were locked up on some guys, which allowed a lot of the running backs and receivers to have the big games that they had.
I would say it was the best blocking game by the receiving corps since I've been the head coach at USC. I thought they were fantastic. It's easy to look at Juju, 10 catches, 190-something yards, 2 touchdowns. He blocked his tail off. Darius Rogers, 2 huge knockdown blocks. I mean, not just blocks, knocking guys down to the ground to spring long runs. Stephen Mitchell showing a whole different Stephen Mitchell to me, blocking downfield. Jalen Green, Isaac Whitney. I mean, these guys were all – we challenged them to be physical and not just be physical with the ball in their hands, but in blocking, and it totally showed, and we're going to need it again this Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, because a couple of the guys only got a couple catches, maybe 1 catch each, a guy like Darius, but they'll know that their time will come, and they'll want their buddies to block for them.
No,
so,
now you say, Coach, throw me the ball.
That's
what I do. I go to, you see those blocks? Throw me the ball.
A lot of times, like on Mondays, I come in, I'll show different things about effort or big plays to the entire team. And it was really cool to show receivers blocking to the entire team. And there's a great deal of appreciation. You know that, JJ. I mean, when you're blocking and Coach shows it, and the linebacker comes up to you in the locker room, hey, way to go, JJ, or whatever it was. I mean, that goes a long way just for your team. That guy, that guy's giving it up for the team, and it's not just about him. Hey, get me the ball, throw me the damn ball, or whatever. It's about what am I doing to help our team win that game, and I think that showed a lot about our team in general.
That's great stuff. That's Coach Sark, and you can hear him break this one down. Monday Morning Quarterback, Galen Center Founders Room on September 21. Info at TrojanAthleticFund.com.